I'm MarzGurl.
I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
Welcome to episode 63 of MokkoriPlay, the only podcast dedicated solely to all things City Hunter.
On today's podcast, we're going to cover Season 2, Episode 12 of City Hunter, titled The Inevitable Ringside Battle Bloodshed, Cobra Twist of Love.
We're talking about wrestling.
WRASSLIN.
Pro wrestling.
Pro-res.
Pro-res.
Yes, specifically the shortened form of the words professional wrestling, Kaylin.
You know, there's a picture that gets around every so often, and I think it was at Fuji-Q Highland, which is a theme park that's at the base of Mount Fuji. Great theme park, by the way. There's a picture that gets around the internet sometimes that's just a sign of a silhouette of a guy holding his fists up next to the silhouette
Like
of
in fisticuffs.
Yeah, in fisticuffs, next to the silhouette of a bear, and in Japanese it reads, "Please do not pro-wrestle the bears," because I guess there's bears out in that area.
Yeah.
And they tell you, don't do that. So thankfully, nobody in this episode has to pro-wrestle any bears.
Yeah, no bears were harmed in the making of this episode.
Right, but some people do get hurt, and they justifiably get hurt.
So there's a couple of things that combine here in this episode that are loves we already have: pro wrestling and Yakuza.
Great! We needed them to come together, finally.
You say finally, but like, we play a lot of the Yakuza series of games.
I guess they just go together.
They do go together. Like today even, just today, they announced Kenny Omega was going to show up in this Western release of Like a Dragon Ishin, right?
Yes. That's insane to me, which, by the way, reminder that Kenny Omega is a super gaming nerd, and so his finishing move is One-Winged Angel. He pronounces it One-Winged Angel, and I guess a lot of people do. I do not. Anyway, he's wrong. I'm correct.
But you're not going to tell him that.
I would never tell him that to his face. Anyway, it's weird that they put his One-Winged Angel move into a Yakuza game when he took it from Final Fantasy VII. So now, not Kiryu is doing Sephiroth kind of Masamune moves in a Yakuza game. It's so weird.
But that's where we're at right now. It's all connected.
Anyway, City Hunter.
But yeah, you're not here to have us go on and on about that. You're here to have us talk about the pervert man and his lovely assistant,
Who then run into some other lovely ladies who do the Puro-resu.
So at the top of the episode, we're introduced to the Fighting Spirit Women's Pro Wrestling WWWL Championship.
Ooh, that sounds like a big deal.
So here at the opening of the show, we see that Cowdy and Ryo are at a match for this wrestling outfit, which is packed to the brim with fans, most of them screaming women.
Which we've come to find is an incredibly accurate depiction of what women's wrestling was looking like at about that time.
Because a lot of this episode takes a cue from what was the biggest outfit in wrestling at the time, women's wrestling, or as they called it, Joshi Pro-res.
I mean, Joshi is basically women.
Yeah. Specifically, it was this outfit called All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. So most of what happens in this episode, all of what happens in this episode, is based on that very real outfit, which was the most popular in Japan throughout the 80s.
And man, you look at some old footage of this wrestling outfit, you can tell these fans are nuts for what they're watching. Like, just going crazy. We'll describe more of that later. It's insane. It's insane how popular it was, and it's insane that it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that outfit doesn't exist anymore.
That outfit doesn't.
But Japanese women's pro wrestling still continues on right now with outfits like Stardom.
Yes.
Over there, very popular right now. So Cowdy and Ryo are watching a match right now, a haircut death match. We'll touch more on that in a second. Between our client for the week, Kumi Akamatsu, who is the current reigning champion of this outfit, and she is going up against the heel, the enemy, the antagonist, by the name of Lucifer Ray.
That sounds like an evil name.
This is just me over here. Sometimes Ray, if you wanted to, can be translated as the number 0.
0, yes.
So if you look at it that way, Lucifer 0, that sounds like a cool-ass indie game.
Oh man, somebody should make that.
Oh man, have you played Lucifer 0 yet?
No, not yet. I got it on my wish list.
Yeah, I know. I got the pre-order in. See, like, it rolls right off the tongue.
Wait, how have you played it if you've got the pre-order in?
Oh, it was the demo.
Oh, cool.
So these two characters we need to talk about here for a second. One of them more loosely than the other are based on actual female wrestlers that were very popular at the time. So Kumi Akamatsu is, an original character, but she's loosely based on Chigusa Nagayo, who was head of a group called the Crush Gals at the time. But more importantly is her opponent, Lucifer Ray, who is very obviously based on the biggest heel of Japanese women's pro wrestling in the 80s, a wrestler by the name of Dump Matsumoto.
This is nuts. Yeah, looking into this, they're not even trying to hide it.
No, she is like 100% based on Dump Matsumoto.
So this entire episode is based around the idea of this haircut match.
And so we bring that up because between those two real wrestlers, Nagayo and Matsumoto, in 1985, so 37 odd years ago, they had a haircut death match there in All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling.
Which meant, like, the loser was going to get their haircut in the ring.
And so, thankfully, this match is up on YouTube. And so, doing our due diligence, we checked out the match.
Yeah, I was just like, man, if they're basing so much of this episode on this series of events, then I really need to see what this match was. So I'm clicking around and I'm watching it. This is the most insane thing I have ever seen, especially out of women's wrestling. This is crazy. And you know how, like, you'll watch New Japan these days,
New
right?
Japan Pro Wrestling, yeah.
And the crowd is just very polite. They're really quiet while their wrestlers are coming out into the ring, and they're quiet and polite while the wrestling is happening, and then a cool move will happen, and then they'll go, "Oh!"
A little scattered applause.
But this match in 1985 for this women's wrestling is insanely different. It's WWF big, maybe bigger. They're throwing just a shit ton of streamers into the ring. It's also full of women. Just this
Women
audience
and
is
young boys.
full of women screaming the entire time from beginning to end. It doesn't stop. The crowd is nuts. There's all these people rushing into the sidelines the entire time as stuff is happening. These girls are screaming and they're crying.
Like,
and
the crowd is absolutely distraught when Nagayo loses the match and she has to get her hair cut there in the middle of the ring, and they buy into the storyline so hard. Those tears from those fans are real. The horror on their faces.
Well, yeah, because this woman is bleeding out of her forehead and there's so much blood on her face. Whether that blood is real or not, I don't know. Bad guy over here, Dump Matsumoto, has got a pair of scissors half the time, and, like, that's really friggin' dangerous, even if she's holding it down at the point. Starts trying to stab people, starts trying to stab the ref. People are just getting up in the ref's face and, like, grabbing his shirt and shaking him around.
Like, how could you let this happen?
I'm just like, oh my god, this is so intense. I can't even describe to you how wild this is without physically showing you this, like, 20-minute match.
Yeah, so you can
insane.
definitely go check that out on YouTube. See for yourself, like, this is the fervor that the fans had all the way back in the mid-80s.
Right.
All right? And, like, we say this now as fans of current pro wrestling. We watch, AEW, some house shows around here in the greater Los Angeles area. We watch New Japan.
GCW comes through every so often.
Yeah, we've gone to a couple of those shows. Those have been great. And so that if you have that cultural context, you imagine you're a kid or even just anybody who watched that show, which had amazing ratings in the 80s. You get the context of this episode. You absolutely understand, oh, this is what they're basing it off.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we're watching this match play out, and thankfully nobody actually gets their hair cut here in the episode, Ryo is watching and realizing, oh my god, this isn't just for shits and giggles. These women are the pinnacle of entertainment. Oh my god. And so he's got his binoculars, but as he's getting more and more excited, he's like getting in the ring while they're wrestling.
Which maybe don't do that. He's getting, ever closer and closer and closer. Mind you, he had ringside seats, so he was already in the danger zone. And then wrestlers start flying out of the ring.
And so does Ryo, because he shouldn't be there.
Well, he wasn't, like, in the ring. He was outside of the ring, and the wrestlers landed right on him.
Now, mind you, we've been to some house shows, or those GCW shows, where we've had wrestlers land on our friends.
Yeah.
Who were sitting next to us.
Right there in the folding chairs right next to ringside.
Which is amazing.
It is. It's very cool.
So after the match is over and Ryo has dealt with this, they go ahead and talk to the manager of Kumi, the top
Kumi's manager.
Kumi's manager, right. And the manager explains, well, here's what's been going on lately. Some weird stuff has been happening around Kumi. First and foremost, we noticed that a ring rope got cut, and that wasn't good. And then she had a fan meeting, and somebody, like, drove a truck through the crowd trying to get to her.
That's a pretty big holy shit. That shot is really cool, though, because she, like, saves one of the fans. You can see she's picking them up and getting them out of the way of this truck. So she's like a hero to that person.
She's very much a face, in the face of a car coming at her.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's playing the part 100%. Ryo's like, say no more. I get it. You need a bodyguard. I'm here for it. I am on the case, and I understand this is, a bunch of very capable women, but at the end of the day, they're still women. They need a big, strong knight to take care of them.
Shut the fuck up.
Which is basically what Cowdy is like. She's got the hammer cocked like,
yeah.
Rio, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. These women are professionals. And they are.
Professional wrestlers.
Yes.
That's what the pro in pro res means.
He might not understand that. He might be thinking of a different pro.
I mean, maybe.
So in order to go ahead and investigate further, they have to drive out to the joint camp that they have where the women train at, which is all the way out past Mount Fuji.
It's still in the Kanto region, though. I mean, it's only so far away. That might be like an hour, maximum 2 hours drive. I even think 2 hours is pushing it.
So they get to the camp, and it's very much like what we see out here in California, where you hear about like the Dallas Cowboys training camp, where they're training and people can go and watch their practices.
Yeah, I don't think it's super typical for you to be able to just go up and watch wrestlers practice.
Right, but noticeably, all of the people watching this practice are women, and Ryo picked up on that real quick.
He's just very happy to be around a whole bunch of ladies right now.
And Cowdy has to remind him, no, jackass, work comes first. We have to investigate who's responsible for all these threats. And Ryo's like, all right, don't worry, I'm on top of it. I stopped off at the Don Quixote before we got here, and I got me some wrestling gear.
Okay, cool, man. This is definitely not your bag, but okay, so he's got on
a cape, like a vampire cape, and like boots and, leggings.
Yeah, wrestler's leggings, and then he thinks he can just waltz right on into the ring, and he starts trying to run the ropes, and that does not go over very well, because he starts trying to wrestle Kumi, and Kumi's not having any of it. She puts a foot directly into his face, like she's not even gonna help him train or anything. Like, I did a 1-day wrestling training, and they were like, okay, now you're going to learn to run the ropes. You know what they did not do is try to hit me in the face while I was just learning how to run ropes.
Right, exactly. And so Ryo is trying to get all touchy-feely here. He wants some body-to-body contact. Kumi is having none of it. She's like, I don't need a bodyguard when obviously you're so weak you can't even get out of this arm bar I've got you in. Bounce you off the ropes. And so Ryo does what he does best, and he does half a frog splash at her and wraps himself around her like a koala, like a perverted little koala, which sets her off. And she hits him with this nice combination of a tie-up, drop kick, clothesline, and knee to the face. And so he gets his ass knocked out of the ring and out of the building, and Cowdy's like...
Through a window, right?
Yeah. And Cowdy's just out there like, haha, I told you.
I mean, you got what you deserved, man. Straight through glass. Like, this was not an open window. It was a closed window.
So, thankfully, Cowdy here, she's taking the initiative. She's like, all right, you go ahead and mess around here all you want. I'm actually going to do some real detective work, and I'm going to go check out who we think is responsible. And naturally, because they watched the match at the beginning of the episode, Cowdy is under the impression that Lucifer Ray and her stable, her goon squad, are actually the ones behind all of these threats. So I'm going to go check out their campsite, and I'll get back to you.
They are very bad-looking dudes, these ladies.
So she gets to their dorm, and, she's just checking in the window to see what they're doing, and they just have all the weapons.
A lot of knives. There's a lot of knives.
A lot of kendo sticks, some chains. Like, they look like they're gonna mess somebody up.
Just like the real wrestlers of that real outfit.
Exactly.
Like in that match that we watched, they brought out a chain. Chigusa got choked out with a chain.
Almost. They had to break it up.
Yeah.
And so they're like throwing knives around like, all right, time to get ready for tonight. And so obviously they sound like they've got a plan for later this evening, specifically for Kumi. And Cowdy's like, oh crap, they're throwing knives. They almost hit me. I gotta go warn Ryo.
She's very spooked, runs off. She has decided, yes, this is definitely what has been going on. There is definitely going to be a murder later if I don't do something.
So after Kumi has finished thoroughly kicking Ryo's ass, she goes and showers off, goes back to her dorm, showers off, comes out of the shower, and Ryo is already in her room.
Of course he is. Why wouldn't he be?
And he explains to her, look, I see the look on your face every so often. I'm here to protect your smile because clearly you're holding back that you're afraid of something. Something's not right here, and I'm here to get to the bottom of it. And of course, she's still trying to say she's strong, say that she's not afraid, but, he's got her number here.
Sure.
She is, in fact, afraid of something.
Yeah, she's looking out over the balcony like there's a look on her face that's going, I am concerned about things that have been happening, even though she's trying to put up a strong front about everything.
And so as they're out there conversing, it's pretty obvious to Ryo, she's just gotten out of of the shower, and so she hasn't put anything else on except her robe, and he catches a glimpse of the chestal region, and very much exclaims in English with some of the most amazing faces I've seen him make, "Wow! No bra!"
No bra!
And he's like, the animators made him enunciate every syllable, all right?
It's really good. We're gonna have to take some screenshots of these faces. They're very, very good.
But again, Kumi's not having that, as well she shouldn't.
And wrestling!
And she puts him in her signature move, the Cobra Twist. She's got him all locked up. The problem is he's hurting, and he kinda likes it.
Ryo's kind of a freak. I mean, I'm not out here to kink shame, but Ryo's kind of a freak.
No, he's a freak. We've been over this. He's a freak.
Like, I wouldn't say anything if it weren't for the fact that he's a freak without her permission.
Like,
that's what it is.
If you see the faces he's making now,
yeah,
when he's in the lock, and he's like, "Oh my god, this hurts so much, but I love the feel of your body heat next to me."
Yeah, it's super gross. It's really, really gross.
And so she has to kick him off the balcony.
Which makes sense. He deserved that one too. He lands directly in front of Kaori, right on top of, like, what is it, like a table?
Like a stone table.
Like a cement table or something. And Kaori's just like, "Well, you had that coming. Anyway, come with me. I figured out who's after Kumi here. Let's go. We gotta go take care of this."
But in the meantime, Kumi has just received a phone call from Lucifer, like, "Hey, we need you to come over here. Come on over." And so Kaori and Ryo realize, oh no, she's being called away to their compound. That's bad.
We have to go and we have to save her. We're doing running.
Ryo is like Tom Cruise running right now. Like the way he runs in Mission Impossible movies, that's how he's running right now.
Like chest all the way up.
Yeah, arms pumping.
Yeah.
Like, no, we gotta stop her. And they're too late. She gets in the door, and it's real dark in there. And so Ryo does this action movie roll in, draws the gun, like, freeze!
He's ready to shoot somebody. That's the scary thing right now.
And the thing is, he's got half a reason, because literally, something just popped off.
Yeah, but it's nothing that's particularly dangerous. It's party favors.
Surprise! It's your birthday, Kumi.
Oh, wow. You mean we don't need this gun?
I love it when Ryo realizes what's going on and it's a surprise birthday party. The look, like, it's a couple of frames, but he's looking at his gun like, who put this in my hand?
I just want to say this was great timing for this episode because as of this recording, we are 1 hour away from my birthday, so it felt like City Hunter was celebrating my birthday.
Yay.
Yay.
And so this surprise birthday party for Kumi is being thrown by Lucifer Ray and her goons, who in actuality do not hate each other.
Wow. And why is that? Because wrestling is a little bit fake. Not entirely fake, but a little bit fake.
So this is where we have to introduce you guys who aren't familiar with wrestling to the concept of kayfabe.
Also, Kaori is just learning what kayfabe is.
So kayfabe is this unspoken agreement that the wrestlers have to keep up the storyline and character whenever they're around fans, so that they believe what's going on.
Right.
It's to make you believe what's going on in the ring is a real thing, that way you get emotionally invested. When I first got into wrestling in the late 90s, I fully believed that everything I saw on Monday Night Raw was real.
And, you know, like, yes, wrestlers really are getting hurt sometimes because, like, you can't do that and never get hurt. Although you train specifically to know how to do these stunts without actually terribly hurting somebody.
Right, like it still takes quite a toll on the body, but at the same time, the storylines that are written alongside that, it takes a lot to, or rather I should say, it takes a childlike sense of wonderment that I dare say is worth holding on to.
Sure.
To believe things like, there's this man who is undead, who has kidnapped the boss's daughter, and wants to sacrifice her to get himself to win at WrestleMania.
I mean, I don't believe that for a second, but it is very funny and very entertaining.
But as a man once said, recorded at one of these wrestling events, it's real to me, damn it.
But all the same, like, even when you do your best to, like, pre-script some of these matches and stuff, and even if the wrestlers don't have the relationship with each other that they appear to have in the ring, like, sometimes mistakes happen, so sometimes people do get legitimately hurt on accident. Or, in an even more rare occasion, sometimes somebody hurts somebody else on purpose when they very much were not supposed to do that.
Yes, that happens as well, and as well as other horrible things that you can watch Dark Side of the Ring for. But we won't get into
I don't encourage that at this moment in time. That's very, very sad.
Yeah, you're in the middle of this episode. Just wait till we're done. And so they're having a nice time here. You know, they've got a pretty good spread out for Kumi's birthday. You know, they got fried chicken, some bread, some cake, some Pocky.
They've got this, like, beer stein? I don't know. It's a very large mug looking thing. Like, it's a can of beer, but also it's got a handle like a mug.
It looks like a can of Foster's, right? But it's got this little adorable orange penguin on it.
Who's also holding a can of beer. And I can't quite tell if it's got a pull tab on it or if that's like a spout and you're intended to
pour it out.
Pour the beer out of this thing because this thing is so big.
Yeah, especially for people in Japan. Like, I didn't think you would drink something that huge. Also, I love the naming here, Yontori.
Instead of Suntory. Right, exactly. We get a pan out of the whole room. And this is a moment where we were like, hey, we can see the back of some of these wrestlers' jackets. What does this one say? Goku-aku? And we kind of looked this up like, is that a thing? And yeah, well, we were talking about this actual legitimate wrestling organization and the same organization, the same, like, group,
faction.
The same faction that Dump Matsumoto was in. That was, what, Goku-aku?
That was Goku-aku Dome.
So, okay, like, Sunrise isn't even trying to hide it. Not even remotely, that this is exactly where they were pulling from.
Like, that just tells you, the animators, the writers, they were heavy into All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling at the time.
For sure.
I would bet money they watched that match. That hair cutting match.
Absolutely.
And like we always say, I love it when we get to see into the lives of the people who are making the show. Like, hey, this is what we're into.
Yeah, there's no way they didn't watch that full match. Otherwise, like, why are we doing this whole very detailed episode at all?
And so everybody's carrying on, having a good time. Ryo's getting wasted, making shadow puppets. It's a whole thing. But Kumi is called away by 3 dudes out in the woods.
That's not weird or suspicious at all. But they're like, so, are you gonna do it? Have you decided? And she's like, yeah, fine, I'll do it. Wait, what are we talking about now? I don't know. Ryo has come out to check on her because he thought it was weird that she's left the party, her own birthday party.
And so he checks on these guys and recognizes very quickly, oh, you guys are with the Ginsei Kai.
That's a Yakuza family.
Chalk that one up, folks. It's another Yakuza episode.
We really need to keep better count of these.
You would figure by this point we would have.
Oops.
So Ryo very obviously sees that they're trying to strong-arm Kumi into some sort of decision she doesn't want to make, and makes quick work of these 3 dudes.
There's some punches. I mean, those punches are pretty good.
And he runs them off. But he has to have this conversation with Kumi after the fact of like, okay, so what is it that they want?
So they're sitting by the nearby lake and they have this conversation, and Kumi is like, oh, they're trying to strong-arm me into throwing this match that I'm supposed to be doing
against Lucifer
because they want to make some money off of our match because they're betting on it.
And they say if I don't throw the match and let her win, then they're gonna let their gangs into the arenas and they're gonna mess with all the fans. And I don't want that because I care about my fans.
Like, that seems like a sort of thing that if they actually did that, don't you think police might actually get involved if it was such a big, like, they're gonna attack a whole bunch of women in the audience?
Well, see, that's the thing I'm thinking about after the fact. Like, I wasn't thinking about this while we were rewatching the episode, but now here doing the recording, I'm like, wait a minute, wouldn't it be so obvious that that crowd is full of women, and then you got these angry-looking dudes there?
Like, they would really be that brazen?
They would
like
stick out that hard?
I don't know. Maybe I am underestimating just how brazen the Yakuza once were, because I know as of late, the Yakuza try their best to look quote-unquote legitimate, as best as they possibly can, so that sort of shit does not happen.
But to be fair, we've done some homework on what it was like in the 80s when it came to Yakuza-related things.
Oh, it was much worse in the 80s.
Yeah, it was so much worse. Like, we've heard enough tales from, like, Vice doing coverage on what it was like back then, and apparently it's just as bad as they make it out to be, or it was at the time. But in any case, Ryo tells Kumi, look, I get what's going on, don't you worry, I said I was going to protect your smile and bring it back, and damn it, that's what I'm going to do.
They keep using this language about, oh, you can't fix the match, that would make your fans really sad, your fans would be able to tell, and I'm sitting here going, yeah, but really? Like, the verbiage of fixing the match, I feel like this entire episode is predicated on the idea that wrestlers wrestling is not predetermined already. So unless the Ginseikai know that the match was already gonna go the other direction, and they want her to do a screw job, if that's what they're asking her to do, then the phrasing doesn't totally make sense. So it feels like Ryo doesn't necessarily know how wrestling actually works, and maybe the Yakuza don't actually know how wrestling actually works, and then Kumi never really corrects that idea. So it feels like the writers, like Sunrise, also tried to keep up this image that, yes, wrestling is basically real, even if the wrestlers could possibly be friends with each other behind the scenes.
Because for comparison, this isn't the same as last season in episode 3 when a boxing match was trying to be fixed, right?
Right.
Like, that outcome had not yet been determined.
Right.
And so that guy in that episode was trying to make sure that the champ threw the match, because they have to actually decide in the moment, because, you know, it's not entertainment.
I mean, it is entertainment, but it's actual, we are determining who the winner is by sheer skill, and it's not like I'm saying that wrestlers don't have skill. I'm saying that matches are predetermined because that is a specific kind of entertainment.
A storyline to keep to.
Yeah, it's a presentation, and in its own sense, there is some acting involved. There's a different set of skills involved in professional wrestling.
Now, to her credit, Kumi does say, if I sell it right, then I can make people believe that I'm not losing on purpose. So they are kind of touching on that. Like, the writers are kind of aware. But yes, I do think this part of the episode on does kind of play fast and loose with the idea of who actually believes or understands what kayfabe is.
Right.
So yeah, Ryo has calmed Kumi down. They go back to the party. Party winds down and everybody goes to sleep, just kind of right there where they are. And Ryo is just lying there on the floor next to Coyote. Everybody else is just crashed out with like a sheet over him. And everybody's snoring.
Very loud. Loud women snoring. I gotta admit, there was one high school trip that I went on, a choir trip, and I was in a room with another choir girl, and she was the loudest snorer I have ever met in my life.
I don't think that's true, because I have to bring up the one MagFest we went to with the person who had the sleep apnea machine.
Okay, maybe the second loudest person.
And you remember, we were rooming with them, and then their hose got unplugged during the middle of the night.
Well, one night they just did not put their sleep apnea mask on at all.
Yeah.
One night they put it on, and it was fine, and the other night they did not bother to put it on, and there was no sleeping.
No, it was just chainsaws. It was awful.
But I say this to say, women can also snore like that.
Everybody is susceptible to a deviated septum.
Yeah, exactly.
But understandably, Ryo wants to get some shut-eye, so he tries going out into the living room area, where Kumi has parked herself on the couch to sleep, and she is not snoring, so doubly interested, because 1, she pretty, 2, she asleep, and 3, she don't snore. Jackpot.
Profit.
Well, question mark, profit.
Step 4, question mark, profit. Well,
right.
Step 3,
question mark, step 4, profit.
I know how this goes.
Don't try to correct me. I was there when the magic was written.
I was too.
And so Ryo tries to sneak up on Kumi, but Kumi, I guess she's a light sleeper, because she immediately wakes up and senses something's wrong. And here comes Ryo being all creepy, like, hey, you don't snore. You mind if I snuggle up next to you?
Yes, I do mind.
But you know who minds even more than her?
Is it Kaori?
It's Kaori.
Is it Kaori? It's Kaori.
And so Kaori decided to deviate from the normal way of handling things, because traditionally she always goes for the hammer. But this time she's taking it a step further. She has gotten a metal dog collar.
Oh yeah, the dog collar. That's kind of strange. What a strange contraption for her to just suddenly have. Maybe it's just because the wrestlers all had weird contraptions of their own.
I imagine that's what it is. She opted to use one of the props that was around because the wrestlers use those in the matches.
Right. Yeah, she's dog collared him. She's pulling him back. But in the midst of all of this, Ryo realizes there is suddenly a problem. And there is something outside the window, barreling right at them. It's a whole ass truck.
Ryo's super hearing kicks in, and he hears this truck coming, and he's like, Kumi, get out of the way!
Well, on top of that, you can see the headlights pouring in through the window, directly into the window.
And unfortunately, Kumi is kind of like a deer in headlights and not moving fast enough to get away from the window.
Well, she's not even looking at the window. She's just like, huh? What? She doesn't know it's behind her. She just knows that Ryo is shouting at her and he's trying to run over to her to protect her from a truck barreling through the wall. But Kaori just sees, oh, Ryo is running at this girl. This is a thing that he always does and I need to protect the girl. So she yanks back on the stupid chain collar that's around his neck and prevents him from being able to get to her. Kaori genuinely fucked up.
Because what happens next is that the truck makes its way through the wall, Kool-Aid Man style. The whole living room comes down around them. Kumi is knocked out and is probably hurt.
I'm shocked that it didn't totally run her over. It basically looked like it hit her.
Yeah, exactly. And the guys from the Ginsekai take her limp body, put it in the back of their truck, back it out, and head back to their base. And you see the look on Kaori's face, like she's wide-eyed, and Ryo actually chews her out.
Yeah, he actually shouts at her, and not in a comical sort of way. He's extremely upset. Oh my god, why did you do this?
Like, you have legitimately put our client in danger. Kaori, how did you not see the truck?
Kaori was way too in the moment of, I need to be concerned about what Ryo is doing right now.
Like, she's concerned about the client, but in the wrong way.
Right.
And so you figure naturally everybody else who was sleeping kind of woke up by the sound of a truck crashing through the wall. So all the wrestlers come into what's left of the living room to check on Kaori and Ryo. And they're like, what the hell happened? Ryo has to tell them, okay, here's what happened. They took her, but I know where they went and I know who did it.
Alright, so we're gonna go get them together, right?
Right. So they head out to the Kanto branch of the Ginseikai's organization, which, like you see, is one of these traditional style buildings. You know,
very traditional Japanese.
Tatami floors, all wood doors,
wood
and whatnot.
and paper doors, yeah.
And so the leader of the Kanto Ginseikai is explaining to Kumi as nicely as he can, and I use that very loosely, that he needs her to lose because they've put way too much money on Lucifer in this upcoming match.
Well, maybe you guys should learn how wrestling works and you wouldn't have this problem. They would have had more success if they had just gone to the wrestling outfit and said, tell us who is scripted to win, and then we will put the money on the one that we already know wins.
Well, I think if everybody could see where the storyline was going and it was obvious that Kumi was going to be the winner, then yeah, they would try to fix that for their own gain, because obviously why would you bet against her?
Right, exactly.
So I think that's why they're doing this.
That could be.
But sticking to her morals, Kumi decides, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. My fans put too much trust in me. They love what I do. I love what I do. I'm not going to go against that. Screw you guys. And so the boss is like, I guess we gotta rough you up, huh? All right, get in here, boys.
Just a room full of dudes.
Many dudes,
ready to F her up, even if she is a wrestler. And Ryo is like, well, that's really shitty of you guys. By the way, he's there now. He showed up.
And Ryo's like, hey, Ginsekai, what? On your left. And Ryo pulls back the door, and all of the evil stable that works with Lucifer have shown up in their wrestling gear, ready to throw down, and Kaori is there too, in this nice cute leotard.
Yeah, and a nice singlet. She's got her shoulders all pulled back, and she just looks like she's got enormous back muscles, as if she's been doing pull-downs on the lat
like she's been doing
bar.
presses.
Yeah, presses and pull-downs. She just looks like she's got huge back muscles, but it cannot possibly actually be there. One thing I found was really funny was that as it's pulled out on all of these wrestlers and Ryo and Kaori, Ryo has been polite enough to take off his shoes when walking into this house, but then none of the women wrestlers have taken off their boots. They're the rude ones coming in and like, we're gonna walk all over your floors.
Because they're the rude ones when this group has kidnapped their co-worker.
Well, I just think it's funny that Ryo even thought, hey, everybody here is being real rude. Let me take off my shoes real fast.
I think he did it because he knew it would dick with them. Like, if you happen to notice, if you're one of the Ginsekai and you're looking at him, it's like, he took his shoes off.
That's true.
And so Ryo has also brought with him a karaoke mic and decided to make himself both ref and commentator for this Friday night SmackDown.
Woo! And then wrestling starts happening, and the Yakuza had no idea who they were messing with.
Nope.
I just think it's really funny that, as I said earlier, wrestlers are trained to know how to do these things in such a way that they don't hurt somebody, but now they're deliberately hurting people.
Like, they don't have to pull their punches now.
That's true.
And so they're pulling every sort of wrestling move you can think of. They're doing pile drivers, they're doing clotheslines, they're doing crab locks. Kaori's got the kendo stick and is just wailing on one guy.
Yeah, it's really comical. She's just bah, 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 bah. It only looks like it hurts so much. It looks more annoying than painful. But I mean, if you're just gonna annoy them, at least it'll distract them long enough to stop doing what they're doing.
Because, I don't know if any of you guys know this, you can't actually really hurt somebody with a kendo stick beyond a certain point.
I mean, you can hit them and it'll be like, smack. Ow. Smack. Ow, hey, cut that out.
Yeah, so when you see that on TNT or what have you, they're selling that. They're
Yeah.
making it seem more painful than it is. But I imagine with Cowdy's ability to wield hundreds of tons of hammer, maybe that does hurt.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that in the middle of commentary, Ryo manages to give an aside to the audience. Remember, don't try this at home, folks.
Which is good. We needed to tell the audience that so that nobody feels inspired by City Hunter to try to pro wrestle somebody into the floor.
Which is worth bringing up because when looking up the original organization that this episode is based off, it inspired, back in that year in 1985, it inspired around 2,000 women to try out for this outfit. So it is entirely possible that somebody watching this could have been like, hey, I could do that.
I mean, look at the number of people who want to become wrestlers now. I mean, wrestling is still huge.
Yeah, so I think that warning was warranted.
Look at the number of people who do backyard trampoline wrestling.
I did it in high school, and it was one of the greatest nights of my life.
Okay, did you guys... Nobody who does backyard trampoline wrestling actually plans their routine out.
No, we did not.
It just happens.
Yeah, it just happened, and I only hit one spot on a guy, and that's the most successful action I got all night. I whiffed real hard with a stop sign that somebody had taken down out of the neighborhood.
What?
Yeah, I could have really hurt somebody.
Wait, you picked up like a physical,
Yeah, like a real
whole-ass
road
stop sign?
Yeah, like this was real backyard wrestling.
Oh my god.
Texas backyard wrestling. This is at somebody's birthday party, mind you.
I hope they're the ones that decided they wanted to do it.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm glad to see we're talking about so many birthdays on my birthday.
I know, it's just how that happened. And so as all this bedlam is breaking out, the boss decides, I need to not be here. I would feel safer with a gun. I'm gonna go get one.
And Rio's just like, hey, guns aren't allowed in wrestling. What the fuck are you doing?
And he's like, I'm pulling out this gun. And Rio's like, well, I'm playing footsteps.
I also have a gun. Just gonna shoot straight through this paper. By the way, did you forget your wall is made of paper? Your wall's made of paper. I'm gonna shoot you now through your paper wall. I mean, he doesn't directly hit the guy.
No, he kind of like makes a loose outline around him on the paper wall. And he tells him, all right, so this is what's gonna happen. You're gonna stop this. You're gonna quit your shit. And you're not gonna do this again. Otherwise, I'm gonna send you straight to hell. Got it?
Yeah, sounds good. Bye.
And it's morning now, and all that got wrapped up. Everybody's happy.
And now they're like, now we can just do our match as normal. Yay! And we don't actually see that match.
Yeah, everybody just starts laughing like it's the end of an episode of Police Squad. And you just hear...
Yeah, it ended so fast, and we didn't get to see them actually wrestle.
I know, that's the unfortunate part. I think we ran out of episode again.
Yeah, and they were like, well, we don't have enough to do a two-parter with, so we're just gonna end it.
See, if it had been me, like, if they adapt, because I'm thinking ahead now, if they adapt this for the Netflix series, I would like them to at least do a two-parter, or maybe an hour, 45 minutes.
Right.
You know, something a little longer so we can see more of the WRASSLIN.
I would agree.
But yeah, that's the end of the episode there. We have gotten through the women's wrestling episode.
Yay! That one was a good one that I was really, really waiting for. I was excited for us to get to it.
And credit where credit is due, I was worried, because I could only remember so much of the episode. I remember I liked it, but in rewatching, I was so relieved to see not once in this sport where everybody's being really athletic, not once did Ryo say anything about somebody being too masculine.
Not even to Kaori.
Not even to Cowdy.
Not even for the character that was supposed to look like Dump Matsumoto.
Who admittedly is a very, muscly person.
Right.
And that never came up once.
That is a huge relief.
Especially for everything we've gone through the last 2 weeks of this podcast. Getting to this episode, it was such a relief.
You would almost think Ryo would be like, wow, Kaori, you're so feminine by comparison. And like, none of that shit came up.
Or like, oh, look at Dumb. That's a total dude. Thank God you didn't do that. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, he treats them like, oh, they're all really
He's actually
hot.
genuinely impressed
No,
by
he is
them.
impressed, yeah. And legitimately, if you watch any of these outfits, like Stardom, or if you watch any other thing, GCW, AEW, what have you, not WWE right now, it's really impressive to see, at least over here, how women's wrestling is still trying to get its legs underneath it, because, stuff happens every so often.
Right.
But at least over there, you can still have really entertaining matches. It's a lot of fun. It's something that brings people together, strangely enough. Like, it was something my dad and I bonded on, was getting into pro wrestling. And he would talk about, his old days of cheering for, like, Jake the Snake Roberts and all that. The Rock and Roll Express, all these old groups. And, we're bonding together over, the Attitude Era. And now, all these years later, you and I, we go to these shows. We see New Japan shows when they come out here to California.
We see a whole bunch of friends at all of these places now, too.
And so it's a lot of fun. It's great. And so it's nice that we got this episode that seemed like such a treat to bring all of these things under one roof. Wrestling, City Hunter, and a little bit of Yakuza. And
to be, aside from the Yakuza part, being pretty solidly based in reality? Like, really weirdly based on real-world things that happened.
Like, in the middle of an episode where Ryo's flying out of a window like Wile E. Coyote, it's still based on, oh no, these are based on real people.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, we had that in the Princess episode where there was the proxy for Princess Di last season, and now we got this one. So it's great. So next week, Ryo's going to the dentist.
Nobody likes the dentist. I never had a problem with the dentist, but, some people are scared of the dentist.
I'm not scared of the dentist, I'm scared of the bill.
Yeah, that's a different thing. Hey, isn't it a bunch of bullshit that insurance covers a whole bunch of your body, but decides that teeth are different from the rest of your body?
Teeth and eyes.
Teeth and eyes, what the fuck?
I need both of those to live. So we'll see how that goes.
You don't need teeth to live.
Oh, yes, I do.
You could just drink everything.
Yeah, but where's the fun in that?
That does sound very gross.
Yeah. So Ryo's going to be hitting on a hot dentist, and yeah, well, there's some smuggling in there, I think.
Okay, great. So come back next time when we cover the 13th episode of City Hunter 2, The Most Advanced Smuggling Maneuver, Treatment by a Beautiful Dentist.
And if you want to catch us outside this podcast, you can always find us both over on Twitter. For now, I'm at JoshKnightFirst.
And I'm at MarzGurl. Thank you all so much for listening to our 63rd episode of MokkoriPlay. And if you don't come back next episode, I'm gonna give Josh cavities.
I already got one.